Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It is 11:15 on September 18th, 2024, and I'm Barbara Neal. As a reminder, the meeting's being recorded, and that recording will be posted to the task force webpage following the meeting. We'll start with our usual roll call. Jen is not joining us today, just so everyone is aware. If you could acknowledge your presence verbally when I call your name, that'd be great. So Paul White.
I am here.
Ron Kumetz.
I am here.
And Jim Mack.
Here.
Okay, great. That looks like the sum total of task force members at the moment. Also joining us today, of course, is Callie Audette for our administrative support, and our project management team, Rick and Dom from Televate. I see several people from Mission Critical, including Rance Duffy, Jason Malloy, Gigi Smith, and I think that's it, correct? Okay, good. And we do not have any members of the public joining us today, at least not at this point. Okay, so let's move to approval of the agenda. The agenda was distributed to task force members by email. It's available on our webpage. Do task force members have any changes to the agenda today? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll consider the agenda approved and move on to approval of the minutes from the September 4th regular meeting number 33. Are there any changes needed to these minutes? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from September 4th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Paul. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from September 4th, please raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ron. I see Jim and Paul's hands are up as well, as was mine. Minutes are approved. So let's go to the regional town hall update. So the regional town halls are underway. We've held 3 of them. The last one will be held tomorrow evening from 5 to 7 in Springfield. I wonder if we have Rance, I'm catching you off guard. I wonder if we have a total of the people that have attended, either in person or remote.
Barb, you didn't catch me off guard. I read your email.
Oh, okay.
I did get it together just before. So we are regional town halls. Just give you an update. We have conducted 3. So I'll start with the one we had started with. So Swanton, and I asked about a breakdown. We had virtually about 18 participants, and in person about 14. And then we went to the Fire Academy, and virtually 19, and in person about 30. And Northeastern, which was yesterday, was 26 virtually and 13 in person.
Okay.
Excellent.
Great. So that's 20, 40, 60. I mean, that's close 75 or better, right?
Yeah.
No, over 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't have registration numbers as of yet for tomorrow, because I usually get them I'll get them in the morning so I can put that out.
Okay, great. Well, it seemed to me from, reviewing the videos, the recordings rather, and the transcripts and such, and then attending yesterday, that there's pretty decent participation or attendance and also participation. So I'll go around to everybody to get your impressions of how things are going with that in just a minute. I did want to just convey what my impressions were. Yesterday, at least, there were at least one comment, maybe 2, about participants that were appreciative of the opportunity to attend the forum and glad that we were holding that forum to give them an opportunity to share their experience. Once we have all of the regional town halls complete, Mission Critical will review and analyze all that information and feedback and incorporate it into their assessment, really, of the current landscape in emergency communications. I've noticed a few themes that have come forward. One is a need for a statewide CAD. Local control is important, is what I was hearing at least yesterday. Equity in funding and access to resources seem to repeat. Radio coverage is a big concern in multiple communities, and maybe we haven't even heard from all of the communities where that's a problem. And in Pittsford, at least, there was some discussion, or considerable discussion, you might say, about the impact of the Rutland and Derby closures back in 2015. I'm wondering if other task force members have any thoughts on how the town halls are going, or other themes that you might have noticed. Task force members first, and then we'll go to Televate and Mission Critical with the same question.
Yeah, so I only went to the one in Pittsford, and I have not reviewed the recordings of Swanton or St. John's Day, but
Okay.
but you're right. In Pittsford, I think there was definitely a strong theme there of, if the state police would just reopen Rutland and Derby, then everything would be fixed and we could go back to normal. And I think that is somewhat a product of where we were and who was in attendance, because, like, I think, for example, the entire Pittsford Volunteer Fire Department was there. There were a lot of volunteer firefighters from Rutland County there. And Rutland County is the one, I think, most impacted. Rutland County fire agencies are the ones most impacted by the closure back in 2015. So I think the theme was definitely heard there. But again, I think it was because partly of where we were and who was in attendance. And what I brought up, the point of, yes, we could do that. And I'm not in opposition to that idea. And I don't think the commissioner's even in opposition to that idea. But that is not going to solve all of the things that this task force has been tasked with coming up with. Yes, it might solve an immediate problem in Rutland County, but it's not going to solve the equity issues and the coverage issues and the resiliency issues.
Right. What is it that they wanted? I mean, they say it could go back to normal. What are the pieces of normal that, I mean, this might be too broad a question, pieces of normal that they're looking for?
I think they just don't like the fact that when they pick up the radio, they're talking to somebody in Westminster rather than somebody in Rutland. And they think that because Rutland is a much more populous area, that VSP would have an easier time filling their vacancies in Rutland than in Westminster.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. We heard just one mention of the Derby closure yesterday at the hospital in St. Johnsbury, but it was certainly a more robust discussion on that in Pittsford, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, well, and I think in Derby, the agencies that were affected in Derby, I think most of them have found a dispatch home at Newport and probably are more happy than they were before, except for the fact that they're having to pay for it now. They're probably happier with the service that they're getting now than they were before.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Anybody else from the task force have any thoughts on their attendance?
So I was at the meeting in Swanton, and between that meeting and some conversations that I've had with people from the fire service who attended the Pittsford meeting, I have put together the opinion that one of our problems going forward is that two of those issues, radio coverage and local control, are essentially part of the reason that we are where we are. Everybody wants local control. And so when Homeland Security money became available right after 9/11, when we had all that money that we were giving out for communications and stuff, they all went and they built something to solve what they perceived as their problems. They didn't talk to any of their neighbors. They all grabbed some money. They built some little microcosm of a system. It isn't quite as good as it could be if they had all got together and pooled their money and pooled their resources. And so now their radio coverage is, if you look at the money they spent, they could have had something that was a whole lot better. But they all ran off and did something because they didn't want to wait to have a conversation. It was going to take too long. They didn't quite get along with their neighbors. And so that whole local control thing is sort of mutually exclusive with putting together systems that will work for everybody. They need to learn to play well with others. They need to learn, not to throw sand out of the sandbox, all that kind of stuff. And that's going to be an obstacle for us as I see it. We need to convince them that things will actually improve if you put aside your differences and play with your neighbors.
Right. I think there was one comment yesterday about just really a fear that the needs of this particular community would not be met at all if there was like a heavy state hand in this. But anyway, Jim, I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say some of the similar things that Ron just said. One of the things that I heard was, we want local control, but we want you to give us the money. That's
Right.
one of the things that I noticed from the Swanton meeting also. I watched the other meeting at the Academy, and there was some of that there, but there was also, as Paul had said, if you just turn everything back to the way it was, it would fix all problems, which I don't think they understand. We can't turn things back that way again, because it won't work, because we don't have those dispatchers that they used to know.
Interesting. Okay, is that it for our task force members? Televate and Mission Critical. What are your thoughts on the town halls and all of this? Rick, you
This is Dominic, if I could.
Sure, go ahead, Dom.
Sorry, Barb. Yeah, if I can just comment. I certainly agree with the themes that you identified. We've seen those, and I guess continue to see those. Very interesting analysis, Ron. I agree with that, and I think that's critical and something that needs to be addressed as to how we move forward and how we can satisfy as obviously as many municipalities as we can, while improving the systems, potentially if a regional approach is recommended. I will point out that we've heard some success stories in terms of regional approaches, such as Lamoille County, Shelburne. I think there was another one in the first meeting.
St. Albans.
Yeah, St. Albans, right. Yeah, we've heard some success stories of regional systems where a number of towns or a number of communities have gotten together, pooled their resources, and made a system that's better than each of them could have done individually. And I think we need to, we're looking to find out more about that and how they were successful, and trying to see how that potentially fits into some of our options and plans.
Great. I think Hartford might be another example of a success story. I don't know if we've spoken or if they've attended many of these yet, but that's another one to keep on the radar.
There were people from Hartford at Pittsford.
Yeah.
Okay. Ron, you have your hand up.
Yeah. To go one step further, I think maybe the best service that we can provide to move forward with some of this stuff is to come up with a template for them to work together, to essentially give them a model to bring them together so they don't have to work it all out on their own, and then essentially make the funds available contingent on them developing, local relationships to build something bigger than little tiny systems that are going to serve one or two communities. If they understand that, that's the way the money is best spent, and we're not just going to give it out to make little, like we're not going to just put iron-on patches on their old jeans. then maybe it will encourage them to think bigger than their own personal little problems. And I hope that I made that. It's just sort of something that popped into my head.
Well, it makes sense to me. Like if there is a pot of money, I think that's a big if, or where that pot of money is going to be filled from is still unknown. But if they want access to those hypothetical funds, they could be used to incentivize, really, is that a word? Regionalization. And also I would think in this, if you want access to that pot of money, then you need to be building systems that are meeting some base level of standards that are to be determined through this work as well, would be one of the other factors, I think. Who else?
I'll be happy to give a few thoughts.
Okay.
So I agree with everyone's comments. I think everyone's obviously been very observant of this, and some of the needs are kind of obvious. I mean, we all know that radio coverage and wireless coverage, cellular coverage, is not good in the state. And it's to the detriment of not only the responders, but of the citizens that they represent. So there were conversations about a statewide radio network, a regional radio network, and I think the ideas that Ron just mentioned, and are certainly should be considered for sure. There are also a couple other themes, and Barb, you just mentioned them. There was conversation regarding policy and procedures and standards across dispatch centers, across communication platforms, and I think that was good to hear. That kind of builds upon local control, but under some policy guidelines, procedures that we can all agree to, which kind of builds the theme of building regional or statewide communication solutions. Another thing that I think is really important is that the legislative members that attended these meetings were very engaged. They really wanted to learn. I think some of them were hearing and for the first time that we got a serious problem here. And some brought up, I need to know more. I want to be sure that, you give the legislative body of actions that they can undertake. I think that's really important. I think that is not only the first responders talking, but to hear the legislative members that attended hearing and directly. I think it's really relevant. And of course, one theme that hasn't been mentioned is the funding. How much funding? Where's the funding going to come from? And how will we sustain these networks? I think these are all very critical. They kind of policy procedures. And funding and sustainability are kind of the foundation. It has to be established before I think you can achieve these other objectives that we're talked about.
Yeah, good insights. Rance, I thought you had your hand up a minute ago. Did you have things to share?
I did. I was just kind of waiting for my turn. I wanted to listen to everybody and your comments. And, from our perspective, we've been in the state for the last 6 weeks, and we've been talking to getting down into more of the, I like to say, getting more into the weeds than we did with the town halls. And some of the things that we've observed with the on-sites, in addition to the town halls, and it was actually brought up. So CAD, the CAD at the on-site levels, yes, there is a significant CAD issue that has been brought to our attention over and over and over again, which I know we heard at the town hall. So just want to refer that. I may have some noise in the background also because I'm outside right now. Still in your state, by the way. We're still finishing up our week. The other one is those 2 PSAPs closing. It did get brought up at Swanton, or not Swanton, the Fire Academy there, Paul. You heard it as well as I did, but we've heard it on site several times about those PSAPs closing and the effect that the effect of those PSAPs closing had on the state. And from my understanding, and there's still some very raw nerves over that. I mean, we're talking, I guess I understood it's like 10 years ago now, but there's some people that are still very, very irritated about how that went down. And I do not know the full history. That's for you guys to, we'll have to deal with that at some point. But to that point, bringing those PSAPs online, his point, Paul, to you, what you brought up, yeah, let's turn those back on. That'll fix everything. And I'm with you, Paul. No, that's not going to fix it. In an element of it, would it help? Sure. But there's all these other things that you need to attach to that. So ultimately, you could potentially open those back up, but you need to address all these other issues in order to really get into how that would help fix that. And the other one, we already heard it, radio coverage, radio. I can't just say radio enough. We've heard that, and then right behind it is cell coverage. So we know it, but we're just, how we're going to deal with that, I know is a bigger, larger problem and almost a whole different subsection to this whole entire project. And just the financing and equitability. I do want to bring, I know we've got a couple of comments talking about these regional dispatch centers. You actually have several. You actually have several existing regional dispatch functions going on across the state. What I believe what we're observing is they've grown organically. If you'll follow me, they've grown because that region did not have any use the coordination from the state as far as helping that, and or what happened. They organically grew because of those two other PSAPs closing. So they came together and said, let's create this. And you have actually several of those across the state. But what we're observing is it's just a lack of coordination between them, and then between them up to the state. And so they've done their little thing. It's kind of like they created their own little regional dispatch, which seems to have worked somewhat well for them. And they've done what they could with what they have. But then there's that higher coordination above that. And then to Rick, we heard the same thing about the policies and procedures. A lot of difficulty with that, because I'll go back to the organically created regional dispatch centers. They have policy and procedure themselves. They've kind of built their own within the region, but then again, it's not cross-coordinated between the PSAPs to deliver the calls, also back down to them, and then just between each other and the state. That's what we're kind of observing. Just some of our thoughts, initial thoughts off the top of my head. Obviously, a lot more of this will get more detailed when we're going to be digging in a lot more into the analysis of what we have collected.
Great. Thank you, Rance. Anybody else from task force or partners on this? We're really glad that we have you, Rick, or Televate and Mission Critical, to take all this information and chop it all up and spit it back out into a cohesive, coherent set of information. At least I am. So we'll look forward to that analysis that you're going to be working on. I want to turn now to the topic of the upcoming community listening sessions. These are the forums that are designed to give the general public an opportunity to provide input similar to the regional town halls, but geared to the broader audience. So we're looking at putting together 2 remote virtual sessions in early to mid-October. Rick and Dom are working with Rance and team to nail down potential dates, or to nail down dates. We've provided some potential dates for them to work with, and once we know those, we can circulate them out. I think, Callie, maybe like we did last time with a poll to see who from the task force might be available to attend each of those, and then we'll set up the schedule based on those responses. And so also finalizing the content and how those sessions will run. So thoughts, questions, other input on the community listening sessions? Okay. Okay, great. Let's move on then to public comment. And I do see, looks like maybe Stephen Whitaker has joined us. Stephen, do you want to offer comment today?
Am I the only one?
Yes, you are.
So having listened to a couple of these town halls, I am seeing and hearing what I expressed as concern. If you don't give people a basic understanding of what is possible and what's near term, and you're going to get a very low signal to noise ratio. There were a few people who knew what they were talking about and could ask intelligent questions. But for the most part, it's just scattershot. And it's like going through the motions to say, we invited everybody. But we didn't propose governance structures. We didn't take the opportunity to teach any of these folks what a regional authority, that has bonding authority and that has, mistake analysis and reporting. We didn't, in effect, we wasted the opportunity with these town halls. And I, again, am concerned that we are running towards the end of the year. We have yet to address the issue of getting access to the cell database to complete the propagation study. I don't know why Mission Critical is not pushing that issue. They need to get started on finding the cell dead zones so that we could estimate what it's going to cost to fill them. There needs to be analysis of the benefits of neutral host versus single carrier solutions. The conversation about FirstNet yesterday was so ill-informed, it's pathetic. It means that y'all did not do your homework before you conducted these. You didn't brief these folks on what failover would be. We can't afford an any-to-any where, Burlington takes over dispatching for Brattleboro. So you need, in effect, to program radio codes ahead of time into paired dispatch centers so that if either failed, the other could pick up without having to rework the systems or without even having to retrain people. And none of this stuff is being talked about. So I just had words with Dunges, who was here in our city hall, to talk about the homeless. And, having met with him and made the effort I've met with Paul, Ron has made himself unavailable. So y'all who are supposed to be, you're elected and or appointed to be accountable under Vermont's Constitution, and you're not accountable in this case, and you're being negligent in the way you're handling and squandering valuable time, because the legislature is not going to be pleased with your product because you have failed to address virtually everything I've raised in public comments since this task force first convened. And I'd like y'all to speak to that one of these days on the agenda and have some, candid conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, I'm seeing nobody else from the public, so let's move on to project updates. Rick Televate.
Okay, Dom was going to. I think Dom just left us, so
yeah.
He hung in there as long as he can. All right, let me share my screen with you if I could. And all right, let me know when you can see the screen.
We can.
All right, very good. All right, so I think, most of us not only know what, we've accomplished, but you were actively engaged and participating in it. So, and Rance can follow up, after I present, but there were, their MCP completed 2 of the remaining 8 dispatch centers over this past week, and I think this week they were working on completing all of them, and in fact, I think may have completed. We'll soon hear that. Certainly, the data from the data that's been collected from the surveys, the questionnaires that were sent out, and their visits are. Yeah, I'm sure there's a wealth of information that Rance just previously referenced that they're learning, and that data is going to be processed and is being processed, as it's being gathered and over the next coming weeks, the next phase of the project. The MCP wireless team has also been collecting. We've had a number of meetings with them, and they're collecting data and building. They're going to build a propagation study on that data to look at coverage of radio statewide. So that is ongoing. Televate has actually had meetings with some of the locals to get some additional insight into some of their specific challenges and/or activities that they are undertaking on their own, so that it can be provided to the overall effort so that we have a fuller understanding of what additional activities are going on now to fit into the wireless program. Most of the efforts are wireless oriented that we've been investigating. I think I think at yesterday's session, a couple of people, one in person and one on the phone, from Hardwick were there, and we've had some meetings with them to learn more about what they're doing and what their needs are. And I think their needs in a town in a valley are pretty common throughout the state. And for the last week and a half, I've driven pretty extensively, and it's clear why there are many challenges in radio coverage. Not enough towers that are on mountaintops that overshoot the towns below where coverage needs to be provided. And so, that effort is ongoing and very important to the program. And we completed 2 town halls with great attendance and I think excellent participation from those who attended. There was learning on all sides, and I think that just shows the wisdom of having these town halls. The pursuit of the additional cybersecurity surveys was put on hold until after Labor Day, and so that also will kick off soon. Regarding what we have planned, I mean, obviously we've got another town hall tomorrow. We've had one yesterday. Final dispatch centers are going to be visited. We have certainly began discussing the listening sessions, the topics and the dates and the process, and that'll be, as a team, I think we're all going to get together on that again. MCP also cyber best practice assessment, so they've been putting that together. They're ready to put that survey out and support it. And the data that's been collected, MCP is certainly going to begin development of their model for advancing public safety, the MAPS analysis for the project. That basically is their special approach to assessing the data for us all to better understand it, simplify it, and digest it in a manner. And with the wireless team from MCP, we're still working with them. We've got meetings again this week. And, it's been, we've had a full plate, and a lot has been accomplished over the last couple of weeks and planned for the next 2 weeks beyond that. Regarding action items, I think, these are still on there. There's nothing urgent, but there's nothing that I think we need to focus on. We have done a good job of catching up, our risks. We've caught up on getting, the dispatch center questionnaires done. There's still a few remaining, and all the site visits. So very impressive effort by MCP to make that happen. And from all of the communication centers and PSAPs that have provided that information, very valuable. And in terms of the schedule, I mean, we're good. We've caught up where we're behind. We don't have, hasn't been a great impact other than, may delay some of the assessment because all the data has been delayed coming in. But right now we don't see any greater risks on the schedule. And I'm, confident that what we have accomplished so far and what we have to come, I think, it's all moving along as designed and anticipated by the task force. And I don't have anything more to say other than I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
My pleasure.
Any questions from task force?
I think Lance may want to add to it, and so please do.
Yes, so we'll turn it over to Mission Critical, and I think, Rance, you may have something to add to what Rick just reported, but I also think you want to tell us about some upcoming personnel changes and shifts on the Mission Critical team. So I'll let you do that in the order that you prefer.
Sure. Actually, Rick hit that. Of course, we cross collaborate a lot. So what Televate has is a lot of the information that we have been doing has been provided. So can't really add too much more of that other than we are here finishing out this week, and by Friday of this week we'll have visited all your centers in your state and also finished up your the town halls as we have them scheduled. You see the rest of it. The other piece of it is just all the data, all this stuff we have collected. We got the questionnaire from the beginning and all this information we've collected on site, plus the town halls, all this. I call it my big pile of stuff. Now you got to take that big pile of stuff and you got to pull it all together and make it readable so that everybody understands, what they're looking at. Right now it's just raw data. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. And so we got to work on that part and start the analysis piece of that. So that's all I have to add on that part. On a personal note for myself, unfortunately, but fortunately for me, I am got offered a full-time job with the military, and I am going to go back into take that position I couldn't overlook, and going to move forward with that. With that change, I will be coming off as the project manager, and we will be Jason Beloy, which he's on the phone with us, will be moving into that position. However, to make sure, and I'll let him give his spiel if he has something to say here in a minute. I am staying on part-time, so obviously I have a lot of knowledge of Vermont. I think of Vermont now as my second home because I've been here for a long period of time, and I know a lot of things going on in the state, and I will be able to help Jason transition over as we continue on this project, and I will be helping still. So I'll stop there, Jason, if you want to pop in with anything on your end.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity. As far as the project, I'm not coming in completely blind. I was actually part of the initial team during the first several weeks of on-site visits with the PSAPs. So I've been involved with the project from the beginning. And I've actually worked with Rick and Dom from Televate during my days as a PSAP manager here in Virginia on the other side of the fence. So I've got 34 years in public safety, both sides of the headset, so in the field as well as starting as a telecommunicator and working up through the level of PSAP director. So understand your challenges quite extensively. One of the management roles that I held in a PSAP was in a rural community where there were more cows and deer than there were people. And there was a single radio tower for about 330 square miles of coverage. So I definitely understand the challenges. Rick and Dom worked with me on some stuff in that area. So they know what Rick knows what I'm talking about. I can see the smile on his face. But yeah, I'm just glad to be here, and I'll be working with Rance over the coming weeks to get transitioned in as the project manager. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jason, and welcome. Well, I was going to say welcome to the team, but it sounds like welcome back to the team. We're looking forward to working with you, getting to know you, and it sounds like you're already up to speed or going to be very, very quickly. So that's great. And I do want to say, Rance, I'm sure the entire task force joins me in thanking you for your good work all these past several months. And also staying on part-time for this transition period is very helpful. But we certainly appreciate your commitment to this project, and we wish you only the very best as you move forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Moving on then, if we're all set on project updates, to new business. I have one quick item. Do task force members have anything? Other task force members? Okay.
Barb, I just wanted to share
Yep.
one more thing that unfortunately I didn't think of this before we started doing town hall meetings. It is abundantly clear to me that when we ask people about things, and I'll use radio coverage as an example because it's easy for me to put that in a perspective. When you ask any particular volunteer fire chief if he's got good radio coverage, there is a very wide range of what his perception of good radio coverage is. Now, I regularly tell these guys, hey, you should not be standing outside of a burning building talking to firefighters inside that building on your repeater that's 11 miles away, because if somebody falls into the basement, they can't talk to you anymore. And they insist on doing it, and they think they should be able to do that. They do things like direct traffic on a dispatch channel that's shared by 12 other agencies and towns. So I think there needs to be a baseline where when we are asking these questions, we say, you know, can you do this, 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 and this? Because I don't want to hear it if you're telling me that you can't do that, but you shouldn't be doing that anyway, or that's not a good idea, or that's an unreasonable expectation. You just can't expect to go to every basement in your huge mountainous town and be able to talk to everybody. So I think that when we ask the questions, they need to be more pointed. Leaving them too open-ended is essentially going to gather tainted information, for lack. I can't think of the right word, but you catch where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I do. I think that's an interesting point we need to put into the mix, maybe as we do our last town hall, and any follow-ups, is maybe to add more context to what it is that we're asking. Interesting. Like, yeah. Okay. So let me just let that sink in, and hopefully Rick has made note of how we might incorporate some context, I think, is what we're looking for in some of these
Absolutely.
questions. Okay. All right. Thanks, Ron. So the only item I had, I wanted to let everybody know that I got really a last minute invitation yesterday to speak to the Vermont EMS Advisory Council that's meeting today at 1:00. They're looking for a task force update. So I will let them know where we are with the regional town halls, and the themes that we're seeing so far, where we are in the project, and keep them engaged in the conversations. I have had conversations with Dr. Dan Wolfson, who is actually the 911 board's medical control, about the advisory council and others' opinion that there needs to be like a priority dispatch and a tiered response approach to dispatching and resource management. So I expect I'll hear about that at this meeting, and get those lines of communication opened up. So I'll be doing that in about an hour. Rance, I see your hand up.
Barb, since you mentioned, I wanted to mention that registration for tomorrow is still open. So
Okay.
if you want to throw that out to them, it's the same webpage just that we said before. So if they want to register for that, by all means. I mean, there's a great audience of people we should probably have there, so they can come to that town hall.
Yeah, excellent. I will do that indeed, and give them a little bit of a heads up on the kinds of conversations we're having at those town halls, so they can come prepared. I think it would be a really good opportunity for them.
You know,
Okay,
that's-
Ron, your hand, Ron?
Yes, I am curious. Did anybody have a conversation with the commissioner? She was supposed to have been zooming in or attending the VSFA board meeting in Pittsford on Sunday. To give you an idea how well communications among the first responder organizations works, I too was supposed to zoom in, but my own organization neglected to send me the link. So instead I got to do gardening. So I'm just curious how that went. Also, I had a conversation with her, and I think we've seen that some of the first responders may not be entirely willing to gripe on their own. So we're going to have sort of a pilot meeting with some of the first responders here in the county to just let them unload and just put all their gripes on a piece of paper and that kind of thing, and see how that works. In an effort to get more of them to participate, so that when something does happen, they can't say we didn't give them that opportunity. Giving them more opportunities is certainly better than giving them less opportunities in this case.
Sure. Yeah. I did talk to Jen Morrison about that last idea, Ron. I don't remember having a conversation about the VSFA presentation, but I'll catch up with her.
Hey, Ron, I'd be happy to sit in or join you for that if you'd like. I mean, anything, any information of value to the program, I'd be happy to record it if you want. So just let me know.
Okay. Paul, I see your hand up.
I was just curious, the attendance in Pittsford seemed to be primarily fire and police. I was just curious if there was EMS representation in Swanton and St. Johnsbury.
I know there were,
a few EMS at Swanton, but there wasn't that many.
I know there was
Okay.
one in St. Johnsbury in the room. I'm not certain about who was there online. So I guess we'll need
Okay.
to look into it, Paul.
Okay.
So good. Well, I'll keep everybody informed on what I learn at this advisory council meeting and try to get them engaged for tomorrow, or set up an opportunity for them to be engaged if they can't get there then. So, okay, anything else under new business? All right. Our next meeting date is on the books already for October 2nd at 11:15. And we will be in touch in the meantime on potential participation in the community listening plans to get that on the, or listening sessions, get that on the calendar for everyone. So with that, I think we can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I will
Thank you, Jim.
second that.
Thank you, Ron. All in favor, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye. I see
Aye.
all hands and I hear Ron, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. And we'll be talking to you all along the way.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
We're good.
Have a
Have a
great
great
day.
day.
Bye.